Hi guys, and welcome to the True Golf Academy. You've joined me, John Watts, today at Drayton Park Golf Club. I'm in my swing studio and today's video is going to be about iron length. So it's a question I get asked quite a lot. What iron length should I play with? I'm this tall, do I need it this long? I'm this tall, do I need it this long? So I wanted to do a bit of an experiment today. What I've got and what I'm going to be using is a Mizuno head from our fitting cart. So the head's going to stay the same. It's the Mizuno MP25, so a small cavity club. I'm going to be using the same shaft, so it's a Project X rifle shaft 6.5 flex. But what I'm going to be varying is the length. So I've got one at standard men's length, and these are 6 irons. I've got a 1/2 inch long and an inch longer. Now, not all manufacturers are exactly the same. There is sort of plus or minus around 1/4 inch between manufacturers, sometimes even in terms of head styles. So it's better off talking about inches in terms of shaft length rather than standards or plus half. But all we need to know for this is one is 1/2 inch longer than the first one I'm going to try, and the last one is going to be an inch longer. And what we're going to be looking at is the strike pattern. So I'm just going to put the other 2 shafts down. I'm going to be starting with a Mizuno standard length, and as I said, then I'm going to be going for the 1/2 inch long and the inch longer. And I'm going to hit around 3 shots or so with each, and then we'll look through the data. I've got some dots on my head here, so with my HMT monitor we're going to be able to look at strike location. Now of course, you know, not all of you are going to have access to a launch monitor like a TrackMan, a Flight Scope, or indeed a Foresight Sport GC2 HMT that I've got here. But with some face tape on the golf club, or maybe just putting even some parcel tape, some of the brown tape over the face, you'd see impact location, or spray the face with just some foot spray as I've talked about before, and you can see impact location. I think the best thing to do is test. So we want to use the lightest and the longest shaft we can control, we can hit out the center. So the weight is really important when we're talking about players' tempo. We will all generate more club head speed by using a lighter shaft and a longer shaft. But if that means the strike location gets worse and one's out the heel, one's out the toe, one's out the top, then it's not worthwhile. So we want to use the longest golf club that we can still consistently find somewhere pretty close to that center point. Strike is key here. People with, and not that this video is about weight of shaft, but people with quicker tempos, so at high transition speed from backswing to downswing will generally need heavier shafts. Someone with a very smooth transition can normally get away with lighter. What we're talking about here is, of course, length. What the PGA would suggest is if I'm catching the ball towards the toe of the golf club, that I should try a longer shaft to get the ball out the middle. If I'm hitting the ball out the heel, I should try something a bit shorter to find the center. What I would add to that is if the strike is inconsistent, we would generally be going shorter. We may even start to think about the shaft weight. If we think that a player is struggling with a weight to shaft, whether it's too light or too long, we'd have to gauge that looking at their tempo, the speed, the strength of the golfer. The other thing I notice when I'm giving people different lengths of golf clubs is if you give them a shorter shaft, you'll tend to notice a little bit more tilt from their hips. They're having to sort of sink down to the ball. Now, they could do that actually through knee flex, but I wouldn't want them to. So they're generally going to be doing it this way and actually creating a little bit more forward bend from their pelvis, from their hips. The more you tilt forwards, the more your shoulders are working closer to a vertical axis and more up and down, so that affects the swing plane. You give someone a longer shaft, they tend to stand a little taller and their shoulders tend to work on slightly more of a horizontal axis. So you can even start to look at shaft length to actually adjust around the swing style you've got, or perhaps the swing style you're aiming for. So if you've got a fault where you're too upright, we may try a different shaft length to look at the swing being a little bit flatter, a little bit more around your body. What I'm going to go ahead and do, as I said, is hit 3 shots with each of these, keeping everything else the same, just the length changing. And we'll just have a look through and see what the data tells us. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the screen. You'll see a couple of these shots, but I won't make you watch them all. So we'll fly through them and then we'll talk through the data once I've done enough with each. That felt good. Nearly hit the line. So now hitting the 1/2 inch longer golf club, everything else has, as I said, stayed the same. And now I've got an inch longer than Mizuno standard. Again, everything else has stayed the same. Right, so I've hit 3 with each of those clubs. I'm not suggesting they were my best swings, but it's given me an average. You know, of course, you know, there is going to be human error in there, but what I've done is hit 3 shots with each of those, kept the rest of the variables the same. So the one change is the shaft length itself. So if we look through them, club head speed first of all. So my club head speed went up by nearly 1/2 mile an hour with 1/2 inch longer, and then it went up again by 1 mile an hour in total compared to the standard length. So I generated a little bit more club head speed, and that's fine as long as I'm still striking okay and passing that energy to the golf ball. I felt like I did that perhaps with the first one on the 1/2 inch, but then I had a couple of slightly poorer strikes which brought down the average. So with 1/2 inch longer, although I generated 1/2 mile an hour more club head speed, my ball speed was actually 1/2 mile an hour less. So I was slightly less efficient with, you can see the smash factor there at 1.32 as opposed to 1.33. The highest we can achieve is 1.37, and that's the energy transfer from club to ball. We can generate higher than that with woods, but with our irons, that's our optimum. With the inch longer, Mizuno, it was my highest club head speed and my highest ball speed. The smash factor was greater, so far it's looking like I can cope with a longer shaft. I misstruck a couple in there, as I said, with the plus 1/2 inch, but I think obviously some of this is going to be a little bit of human error. My launch angles, as you can see, didn't change massively. I get 1 or 2 slightly low ones in there where I hit down on the ball a little bit too much, because you can see my angle of attack is pretty similar. It's a little bit more than I want it to be. I want really that figure to be closer to 4 degrees, and the reality is I'm about 6 unless I work quite hard on it. What we're really looking for, however, is strikes. So if I just quickly click through them. So this is first shot with standard length. So it's classed as mid-center. It was slightly high in the golf club. Still classed as center, but slightly low. Both of those, if either way, fractionally nearer the toe, which would normally suggest I can try something a little longer. The last one was actually quite central, I think, from heel to toe, but just again a little low out the golf club. This was the first one with a 1/2 inch long. This felt probably one of my better swings, and you can see I think that's pretty much center. That was my longest shot, so it shows you how important strike is. Very central heel to toe, just a little bit low, and slightly lower, slightly heel with my last shot with a 1/2 inch longer. which is my shortest shot, so the worst strike of the bunch. An inch longer, pretty good, I would say, quite central, slightly low out the golf club, and about the right position from bottom to top, but maybe a fraction towards the toe. All of them are being classed as mid-center. If I can cope with a shaft that's longer than standard length and still strike the ball out the middle of the golf club and it gains me some distance, then I absolutely should do it. As long as I feel comfortable with my posture and I feel like I can maintain that through the swing, then that extra shaft length, if it's gaining me a couple more yards, but not losing me any accuracy or any consistency of strike, then I would do it. Ian Woosnam, much shorter than Nick Faldo, and Ian always used to use clubs, probably still does, longer than men's standard length. I think his were an inch longer, whereas Faldo's were actually closer to standard length or quarter of an inch longer. So Woozy, almost a foot smaller than in height than Nick Faldo, but was using much longer golf clubs because he could still strike it out the centre, it still felt comfortable to him, but it gained him a little bit more distance. So the best way to look at shaft length is looking at contact point and strike. I hope that video has helped. If it has, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel as well. All the other videos coming every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 5:30. And get in touch on social media. It's a great way to post some comments, some questions, videos you'd like to see me film some topics on that can be relevant to you guys at home. Cheers, we'll see you soon.